Okay. So I've logged into my, just a second. Okay. So I've logged into my AWS account. And your question is, how do we authenticate multiple IAM users to
Yeah.
our AWS account? Okay.
Yes.
So first, let's create an IAM user. So I'm going to type IAM in the search box here and select IAM under services. Then in the IAM dashboard, I'm going to select users and click create user. I'm going to give this user a name. I'll just call it user account. Yeah, let me just call it user one. And
No, I'm good.
and I'm not going to give this user AWS Management Console access because we are dealing with access key. So I'm just going to bypass that. Click next here.
Aziz,
Yeah.
please,
Yes,
one
sir.
question.
Yes, sir.
Um, the console access.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that by default at work, or you request for it? Because let's say I'm hired today as a DevOps engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Which access would they give me? As
So okay, let me go back, right? When they hire you as a DevOps engineer, you would have access to the console, right? So this console just means that you can go in the console and the same way you guys log in your AWS account now and do whatever you want to do there, right? So this option is just strictly to say whether you have access to the console or not. So I can even check this option. I can check it. That's fine. So let's say they are creating the user and they are giving the user access to the management console. You will have this type of access.
so
And
so will you have access to the console as well access to programmatic, or what do you call it?
yes,
Programmatic.
you have access to both.
Both, okay.
Yeah. So here, creating an IAM user that you have access to the management console. Here, I'm just going to create a custom password. So we are creating an IAM user that has access to the management console. Then here, I'm going to click, here, I'm going to click next. Then on this page, this is really what determines what you can do in their AWS account. So the first option is just, do you have access to the management console? Keep in mind that you can have access to the management console and still be limited on what you can do. This section of creating your IAM user is how you specify what the user you are creating is allowed to do in your AWS account. So this is where we attach a policy to the IAM user. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to attach the policy directly to the IAM user. So when they are creating your IAM user at work, they will attach a policy to your user And based on whatever policy they attach to your user, that is how you will be allowed to do whatever they want you to do. So I'm just going to give this first user administrator access. Then I'm going to click next and I'm going to click next here. And on this page, this is where we review, and I'm just going to click create user. So I've successfully created that IAM user, right? And I'm going to just go to user list.
So, sorry, Aziz, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is it a good practice to assign a user administrator access?
For our project, yes, but at work they won't give you administrator access unless
Okay.
if you need it. They have, for every role at your company, they have pretty much designed what access those that are working in that role should have. And
Yes.
so let's say they hire you as a DevOps engineer, whatever access they've decided that our DevOps engineer should have, that is what they will give you. So you won't have administrator access at work.
Okay.
But you have access, you have enough access to do whatever you need to do.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So for the sake of our project, just to keep it simple and so that we don't run into any issues when we are creating stuff, that is why we just use administrator access. So
Thank you.
no problem. So once you create the IAM user is here. I'll select it. To give this IAM user programmatic access, that's when we select the security credentials tab. And if you scroll down here, under access keys, we are going to click create access key. Then we'll select command line interface and check this box for I understand and click next. On this page, we are not going to enter any description. We'll just click create access key. So now it has generated the access key and secret access key for this IAM user. This means that you can now do things programmatically in your AWS account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy. You can either copy your access key and secret access key and paste it here and paste it somewhere, or you can download the CSV file. I'm going to download the CSV file. Okay. So now that I've downloaded the CSV file, I'm going to click done. So now you have an IAM user that has programmatic access, right? So the next thing is where your question is how to configure this IAM user's credentials on our computer. So there's multiple ways you can do it, right? But we'll just use this one IAM user for now. To configure it on your computer, you open the terminal on your computer. And you are going to run the AWS configure command. So the first one we will run is, sorry, let me, because I have some configuration on my home directory, I'm going to just clear it now. So when we run the first one, we'll see what we are running. Just a second. Okay. So once we have created the IAM user, the next thing we are going to do is open at the home directory on our computer. Then we are going to run AWS configure. Once you run AWS configure, press enter. It is going to ask you for the access key of your IAM user, right? The access key ID. Then you are going to copy it and paste it here. Then the next thing it is going to ask you is your secret access key. So you are also going to copy it. We are going to copy it. So I'm copying it from the CSV file that I downloaded when I created the IAM user, and I generated an access key and secret access key for the IAM user. So I'm going to copy it from there and paste it here. It is going to ask you for the default region you want to configure for this IAM user's profile. And let's just use US East 1. And press enter. Then for the default output, we're just going to press enter, and we don't usually enter anything for the default output. So we've configured the IAM user's access key and secret access key on our computer. What I want you to understand is that anytime you configure an IAM user's access key and secret access key on your computer using AWS Configure, all this is doing is it is creating a folder on your computer, and in your folder, it will store those credentials in there. So that is all this command is doing. So for that folder, you can either run AWS Configure to create that folder for you and store your credentials in that folder, or you can create the folder yourself. You don't have to run AWS Configure, and I'll show you. So when you run the AWS Configure and configure your access key and secret access key, it will create the folder that I'm talking about in the home directory on your computer. So how do you get to your home directory on a Windows computer is you open your File Explorer, then you select your C drive. On your C drive, you will see a folder called Users. Select that folder. And in the Users folder, you will see another folder. On everyone's computer, most likely it is going to be your name. On my computer, it is name admin. So I'm going to click that folder. In this folder, this is where AWS will create the .aws folder. So here, when you run AWS configure, I'm telling you that it will create this .aws folder. And in this folder, if we double click on it to open it, it will store your credentials in here. So just to show you, you can delete this folder. You can delete this folder now, right? That folder is gone. If I run AWS configure again on my computer, and while I'm running it, just to show you, I'm going to leave my File Explorer here. So remember, this is the home directory. I'm going to move this here so you can see. So I'm running AWS configure again. It is asking me for the access key ID of my user. I'm going to copy the access key ID here. Paste it here. It is asking me for my secret access key. I'm going to copy it from here and paste it here. My default region, it is US East 1. And my default output. Watch what happens once I enter this default format output here. Let me minimize this. Watch here, you will see that it will create the .iam folder again. So once I press enter here, see, just recreated that folder again. And in that folder, you will have your credentials. So usually it will store your credentials in these two files. And in the config file, if you right click on it and select open with, and I'm going to open it with my Visual Studio Code. You can see in it created a default profile. And for that profile, it has stored the region we configured, which is US East 1. So in your config file, that is all it is going to do. It is just going to create the profile name and store the region you configured for that profile. So that is for the config file. For the credentials file, if you right click it and select open with, and I'm going to open it with Visual Studio Code as well. You can see that it has created a profile called default, which is the same as what we saw in the config file. And in this credentials file, it has stored your user's access key ID and secret access key. So that is pretty much what happens when you run the AWS configure command. So now let's say you want to run a bunch of, let's say you want to configure multiple IAM users credentials in this file. What you have to do is there's one step of thing you have to do. Remember, I said that if you keep running AWS configure, so if you keep running AWS configure, like here, in my credentials file, right? This is my current access key. So if I keep running AWS configure and I enter my access key ID, right? And for my secret access key, let me just enter something. Let's assume this is my secret access key, right? I press enter. I enter my default region, which is US East 1. And the default output, I press enter. What this is going to do is this new access key ID this new secret access key, or whatever, maybe access key ID or secret access key, whatever you just configured in your latest AWS configure run is going to override whatever you entered on the previous one. So if we review my config file again, my credentials file, so I'm going to open with Notepad. Okay. You can see that just gonna drag this up like this. You can see that my new access key ID, my new secret access key match the latest one that I configured. So basically what I'm trying to say is when you run AWS configure, that is always creating a default profile. So don't forget that. I'm saying when you run just AWS configure, what this will do is it will create a profile and the profile will always be default. So as much as you keep running AWS configure, it will just keep overriding this default profile. So let's say you want to create another profile. This is what you have to do. You are going to type AWS configure. Now close this for now. Then you enter a space here and you enter -- profile. Then you enter the name of the profile. The name of the profile is, when we saw default there, when AWS stores it, whatever name you entered for it, that is what AWS is going to store it as. So I'm just going to call this profile. You can call it anything you want. So let's say it is your AWS account one. So I'm just going to name this profile my AWS account one. So once you run AWS configure -- profile and you give the profile a name, press enter. It is going to ask you for your secret access key. So it is going to ask you for your access key ID. Sorry. So let's say this is my access key ID. I'm just going to make something random and press enter. It is going to ask you for your secret access key. So let's say this is my secret access key. Right? You press enter. It's going to ask you for your default region. I'm going to enter US East 1. And the default outputs, I'm just going to press enter. So now, if we go back to the home directory on our computer, remember in that .aws, it has created the config and credentials file. So in your config and credentials file, whatever secret you configure on your computer, it will keep storing them in those files. So now let's look at the config file. I'm going to right click and select open with notepad, click OK. You can see the first one we run is the default that is here. The new one that I just ran is my AWS account one. You can see that profile here. It says profile, my AWS account one. And this is the region that I configured for it, USS1. Then if we go in the credentials and select open with notepad, you can see up here, this is the first default one that I configured. And down here, this is the second one I just configured, my AWS account one. So does that make sense? So as long as you keep running the AWS configure, if you want to store another access key and secret access key, let's say either for a different IAM user or for an IAM user that is in a different account, this is how you store them on your computer. You will just run AWS configure. Let me clear the screen. You will run AWS configure. And you have to specify -- profile. Then the name of the profile.
Say dev.
And say I'll just call this one dev user. So once you run that, press enter. It is going to ask you for the access key ID. I'm going to make up some random access key ID. It is going to ask you for a secret access key and just make up something random. Press enter. It is going to ask you for the default region. I'm going to enter US East 1. And the default output, I'm going to press enter. So again, if you go in your, I'm going to close the one I opened. If you go in your files, if you open the config file, open with notepad, you can see now the last one I just configured, profile dev user. If you go in the credentials file, you can see the last one I just configured is here.
Thank you.
So another thing you can do is you don't have to run the configure, but I like running the configure because when you run the AWS configure, it creates the files for you. And in order for AWS to use it, the format has to be in this format. So if the format is off, let's say your format is like this, it is not going to work. So your format must be exactly how AWS expects it, which is like this. You have to store your config in one file, and you have to store your credentials in one file. So basically what I'm trying to say is you can create these files yourself in the .aws directory, but it has to be exactly how AWS created. You would have to create a .aws folder in your home directory on your computer, and in that folder you will create two files, config and credentials. And in the credentials file, you will store your credentials exactly like this. And in your config file, you will store it exactly how I showed you. So that is how that is how you configure your IAM users access key and secret access key. So you can either create the files yourself, but it is always easier to run AWS configure and use it. So let me move on to your next question. So another thing that I want to cover is anytime you run AWS configure, I told you that when you run AWS configure, and you don't specify a profile, which is the first one we'll do, that will create a default profile. And under that default profile, it is the same thing. It will store your access key and secret access key. So what this means is that when I run any AWS CLI command, let's say I run AWS ls S3 or something. Let's assume this is an AWS CLI command. And my credentials are not real credentials. Since I'm broadcasting, I don't want to share the real credentials, right? So let's assume you want to run an AWS CLI command and you type your CLI command. What AWS will do is AWS will go into that .aws folder and look at the credentials there. If you run a CLI command like this, where you just run your CLI command, AWS ls S3, it would always use your default profile. This default, that's why they call it default. This means that anytime I run an AWS CLI command, always use these credentials. So whatever account this is where it will authenticate to. Does that make sense? So it will come into that folder, it would ignore these ones, and it would always use this default one. That is if you run an AWS CLI command where you said AWS ls without specifying a profile. It would always use the default profile. And remember, you get the default profile by just running AWS configure without specifying profile. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now if we want to use, let's say this AWS S3 ls CLI command you are running, you don't want to run it in whatever account you configured for the default. You want to run it for dev user, right, account. So you would have to add -- profile. The same thing you did when you create that user, that's the same thing you would have to do here. You would have to add -- profile and enter the name, the exact name of that profile. The exact name of that profile is dev user. You paste it here, and this is how you will run it. So when you run it this way, when it comes into your .aws folder and it looks at your credentials, it is going to use the credentials for the dev user. So when you configure multiple AWS account profile on your computer, this is how you can identify which one you want to use. Just similarly, if we want to use the my AWS account one, and you are running your CLI command, you will just have to include that profile name next to your CLI command. So that is how it works. Do you have any question on that?
No, I'm good as is. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
So Aziz, what if you run AWS configure? So will it affect anything, or is it the same thing? AWS configures LSS3, then blah, blah, blah. Is it the same thing?
When you run AWS configure,
Yeah, like this line now, you run AWS LSS3 profile, whatever. So what if you do AWS configure LSS3? So is it going to be the same thing, or it doesn't matter?
no, you can run your AWS, you can run your CLI command like that. It is not going to work.
It wasn't okay.
So you have to configure your profile first. So AWS CLI command, how they work is AWS expects, they always start with AWS.
Yes.
And you run whatever CLI command,
Okay.
whatever you are trying to do after it, right?
Okay. Okay.
So if you have two AWS here, AWS does not recognize that as a CLI command anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thank
you would have to configure your profile first, then whatever CLI command you want to run after that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Mr. Larry, so just to show you, this is how, let's now say you are working on a Terraform project, and for your Terraform project, you configured an IAM user's profile, right? That you called, let's say, let me just do another one for the sake of example. I'm just going to configure another profile. Don't save, right? So I'm just going to run AWS configure. Dash profile.
Terraform user.
Okay, Terraform user. Cool. Right?
Yes.
So when we run that, we press enter. What did I do wrong?
Command is
My command is wrong. Sorry. I need two dash on my profile. Let me clear my screen and I'll run it again. So I run my last command. I just need to enter two dashes here and press enter. Right? It is going to ask me for my access key ID. I'm going to make something up. And press enter. It is going to ask me for my secret access key. So I'm going to just enter some random. I'm going to press enter. It is going to ask me for my default region, which is US East 1. Press enter. And my default output, I'm going to press enter. So again, now if we go in our home directory and we review the credentials file, you can see I have another profile called Terraform user, and this is the access key and secret access key. So now in your Terraform project, you can, let me find the Terraform project to open. Let me find the project to open. Okay. Okay. So let's assume this is your Terraform project, right? In your Terraform project, you will have a file called provider, right? Where is it? Right here. In your Terraform project, you'll create a file called providers.tf, right? And in the providers.tf, you have the region you want to create your project and the profile you want to use. This profile argument we enter here is corresponding with the profile on your computer that you want to use. So you guys always remember that in this credentials file, the names you are seeing here, they are called profile. So when you are working on your Terraform project, when you enter the profile argument, you are telling Terraform, on my computer, when I'm authenticating, which profile do I want to use? So whatever profile name you configured on your computer, that's what you enter for profile. So that is how we used our Terraform project to authenticate. So that means that when you now run your Terraform project, it is going to create the resources you have specified on your Terraform project in the account this access key ID and secret access key is created in. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
So that is how that works. So if you want to work on a project for Terraform, for Ansible, you can configure another profile here for Ansible. And in your Ansible project, you will just use that credentials. So that is how the profile works. So Another thing I want to mention to you guys is any profile you configure on your computer, you can use it. So in our Terraform project, just like I told you, you can delete this profile altogether. Let's say I can comment it out. I'm not going to delete it on my, but comment is just as delete, right? You can delete it. And when you run Terraform apply, it is going to use, where's my notepad? When you run Terraform apply, it is going to use the default one. Because remember, this default one just says, if I don't specify a profile, this is the one I always want to use. So when you don't specify a profile, AWS will use the default credentials. And if you want to create it in a specific account, then you have to specify the profile name you configured for that account. That is how it works. Okay. I'm not going to save this. Does anyone else have any question?
Oh, hi. Hi, good evening. Yes, I do. I have two questions.
Okay, go
But
ahead.
is it only question concerning this, or can I ask other question concerning Terraform?
You can ask any question.
Okay, so I have two questions. The first one is this. When I was going through the Terraform course, right, when I got to creating ALB, with what you did, I would need to put in the SSL certificate, and I don't have that because for some reason I'm not able to register a domain name. So is there a command that I can use that will just allow me to use the DNS host name of the ALB to access the website instead of just stopping my work because I can't continue?
You mean as your final website URL?
Yes, yes.
No, you can't do that. So let me open the reference architecture. Pick this. Oh no. Yes. Okay. So this is the reference architecture of our project, right? When we put our servers in the private subnet, it just means that it is a way we are protecting those servers. And this means that users from the internet would not be able to access this server. So in order for the users from the internet to access the server, and by me saying in order for the users to access it, meaning that when we install our website on this server, in order to allow users from the internet to access it, we have to create an application load balancer. Then the user will use the DNS name of the application load balancer to access it. That is how that works, right? But once you configure your application load balancer for your users to use the DNS of your load balancer, you guys know the DNS of your load balancer is one long name. It is like whatever name of your load balancer, some random key, the region. One of the main reasons for a domain name is for simplicity. So you guys remember that anytime you type a domain name for you accessing any site, you are really requesting some information from on the server that website is configured on. So let's say if I enter aosnode.com, right? Really what I'm doing is I'm requesting some information that is on this server that my site is installed on. So what is happening behind the scene is it is now taking the domain name and checking the IP address of that server it is taking the domain name you type in, and on the back end, it will check what IP address is marked to that domain name. then it will use that IP address to access the server to get the information for you. So that's what's going on the back end. So one of the reasons why we use domain name is to make it simple for our end users. You guys know you can remember a domain like amazon.com or aosnode.com or anything like that. So if we use the DNS name of our load balancer, which is this long and it's some random numbers, one of the thing is that our end users is not going to be able to remember it because it is too long. And two, another reason why we can't use it is because the technology, how AWS created that technology, does not allow you to use the same domain name past what we have already used it for here. So here, once we create our load balancer, we can, at this point, you can use the DNS of the load balancer to access your site. That is just not the finished state of your site. So that will work, but the AWS technology does not let you use it past that. You cannot take that DNS of your load balancer and now try to configure it to HTTPS as your final domain name. The technology don't work that way. So that is why we have to create a record set in Route 53 here. And this thing is in my way. We have to create a record set in Route 53 here. Then we now say for this record set we create, we want to max it to our load balancer's DNS name. So I'm assuming this is your load balancer's DNS name. We are maxing it to it. So that is how the end users can access your site. So the main thing I'm trying to say is if you are having the issues with creating your domain name, I can help you look into it and we will figure out a way to resolve that issue of you being able to create your domain name. But yes, if you don't have a domain name, that just means that your project will be completed at this point where you configured your load balancer. That's as much as you can do. Unless if you create a domain name from a different site, you import it into AWS, then you can continue that way as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, it does. It does. Thank you. Then
No
my
problem.
second question is this. So I downloaded Docker for the Docker project and I tried installing it, but it won't work on my computer because what I was getting is incompatible CPU detected.
Okay. And I just created a Docker installation for Mac for the Kubernetes project, and I can send you a link of
Okay.
that. I can send you a link of that video to watch. Let me see if I can log in on my Mac computer and I'll show you. But I can, yeah, I need to log in on my Mac computer to show you. So just a second. I'm going to try to sign in on my Mac. Open link. So what I'm thinking is that maybe you installed the because installing Docker desktop for on Mac has 2 versions. So what I'm thinking is maybe you installed the wrong one. Just a second. I'm trying to log into the meeting on my Mac computer. Just a second, I'm signing in. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen on my Mac computer. Share screen. Okay. So this is what I did when I was installing Docker on my Mac. Here I go to Google and I'm going to type Docker download Mac, right? So that will give you this documentation. And here I'm going to select install Docker desktop on Mac. I'm going to select it here. So what I noticed when I was installing it, because it wasn't the first time I installed it, but it's been a while since I installed Docker on my Mac computer. So I had to go through the documentation. So there are two options here. It says Docker desktop for Mac with Silicon and Docker desktop for Mac with Intel chip. So based on if your Mac computer comes with Silicon or if it comes with Intel chip, that is how you will click any of these buttons to download Docker on your computer. So if you are asking the question, how do I know which one my computer has? The best way to figure that out is up here in the upper left-hand corner of your computer, click on the Apple logo and select about this Mac. So that will open the setting for your Mac. So based on my research, it says that if you can see here under my processors, remove this here. Under my processor, it says Intel. So that means my computer is this one, the second one that has Intel. And it says that if your computer is M1 chip, then it is going to be the silicon. So if you see M1 under your processor or somewhere in here, and you don't see the Intel, that is going to be the other one. So that is all you have to do to pretty much specify which type of processor your computer is using, and you can just type it in there. I mean, you can just click the button once you figure that out. So that could be where the issue is coming from. So, and after class, I can help you uninstall. Then we'll try to reinstall again, and we should be able to resolve it. I know you have a brand new Mac, so most likely maybe you installed the wrong one. And also, if you guys are trying to install anything in the future, and typically you see this for Mac, you see it for Windows too, because Windows can come in 64 or 32. And sometimes when you are trying to install a software, you wouldn't know which one is what. So what I always do is just Google it. So if I just say how, and this is exactly what I do. You can say that's the last command that I run. How do I know if my Mac has Intel processor or M1? So, and this is where I got the answer from. So it just says click on the Apple menu, click about this. Users with Intel processor will have a processor Intel Core, and users with Apple Silicon will have chip Apple M1. So that is how I figured it out. So after class, if you have time, I can help you uninstall and we'll install again. It should work.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you. We
welcome.
can do that after class.
Okay, no problem. All right.
Okay, please.
Yes, sir.
I've been having issues with my console management. I can't seem to launch an EC2 instance that is healthy.
Okay.
I launch them, I see them, they pass the status check. I try to add them to a target group. It comes back as unhealthy. So I don't know what that could be.
What project is that?
That's the what is it called? The dynamic web project.
Okay, sure. Do you want me to help you troubleshoot now? You mind sharing your screen?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay, so let me stop sharing.
Okay. Share this. Okay, so I launched 3 instances and they passed the status check. I tried to add them into the target group, this
Okay.
target group here, and they're all healthy. I've done this for like 2 or 3 days now. It's giving
Okay.
me.
So you can see your bastion host, for your target group, it is telling you why they are failing, right? For your bastion host, that's the timeout request. Request timeout. That anytime you see request timeout, that has to do with security group, right? So that has to do with security group. It just means that maybe your security group is not properly configured. And so it is trying to reach your bastion host, but it can't reach it. So that is what request timeout means. You see the line up there between health status details and anomaly detection. Move your mouse to the right a little bit. Yeah, so move your mouse that line. Yeah, drag it out so you can see that code. So this one is saying 302, right? 302, I believe 302 is not a fail. That is just a code for when we redirect our traffic from HTTP to HTTPS. So I think in the project, I told you to add 301 and 302 code as part of your health check. So we can do that and that should pass. But the main thing is the other one, that one just says failed health check. That could be because in order for your health check to pass, there's something that the load balancer is looking for on your server, right? So let's say you just launch an EC2 instance, you add the EC2 instance to the target group without configuring your website on it. It is going to fail the health check because in order for your health checks to pass, because remember, the application load balancer, the job of the load balancer is to route traffic to the servers we have in the private subnet. And another thing the load balancer is smart enough to do is that if, just like the reference architecture I was sharing, if the load balancer is routing traffic to the servers in your target group, those servers has to be healthy for the load balancer to route traffic to it. So if the load balancer detects that any server is not healthy, it is just not going to route traffic to it, right? So that's one of the things the load balancer does. So if you add an EC2 instance to your target group that doesn't have your website configured on it, there's nothing to show the end users that are trying to access it. So the load balancer is just going to say it's unhealthy. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
what part of the course are you at so we can delete all this
Yes,
and
I
start
can't
from
delete
there?
all this. I was trying to, what was I trying to do again? I was trying to configure an EC2 instance. I was showing somebody something actually, and I was trying to launch an EC2.
Okay, let's so you were trying to, okay, let's terminate those, right?
Launch.
Let's launch another one. Do you have a script from just the static website we created where we can just for the static website, I can show you just for us to test
The
your load
script.
balancer. Yeah, like the one we used to install our website. If you don't have it, it's fine. I have it. I'll send it to you.
I don't.
Yeah, I have one. I'll
But
send it to you.
those servers don't have any website on them.
But yeah, our script will install it.
The Bootstrap.
Yeah, the bootstraps.
Yeah, they have. I have the Bootstrap. Yes. So.
Okay, yeah, just one for the static website. That should be fine. So we don't have to deal with like database and stuff like that.
Okay. Yes. Okay. security group. Which do I choose on this state? Is that fine?
Yeah, so yeah, add your SSH and add your load balancer. And no, since we already have a load balancer, right? Just add your web server one, your web server security group. And scroll up. You don't even need to add your SSH. So under your security group, remove the SSH one, and yeah. So scroll up. Your server should also be in the private subnet. Yeah, so use any of your private app subnet. That's fine. Okay. And okay, I have the script. Don't worry, I'll send mine to you. Open. Okay, so my script, since my bucket is public, you should be able to. I'll paste it here on Slack. I mean, I'll paste it in okay, that one. Hold on. No, this one, this is not it. So remember when we did that Mo website or any of those websites, that the script, I don't know if you've done assignment one. So the script we created for assignment one. But oh no, don't use the one I sent. That's the wrong one.
Okay.
Use this one. That's the one for my S3. You will need access to my S3. So you need to use the one from my GitHub, because that's a public repository. So basically what I'm trying to do is just configure your server so we install a website on it. Then we can really test whether the issue is coming from your load balancer or somewhere else. Okay, so copy that second script I sent. So this is just installing, this script will install Apache on your EC2, and it is going to download the web files from my GitHub, configure it, move it to the HTML directory, and start your server. So yeah, so click launch. Okay. Are you how are you connecting to your EC2 instance? Are you using Keeper or you are using EC2 instance connect endpoint?
Instance connect endpoint.
Good. Okay. So once that instance is running, we would SSH into it and just check whether all your web files and everything are there. Then we will move on to your load balancer. Okay. Refresh. And still initializing. Give it some time. I like how you have your notes. Another thing you can do is with Jira, the account we are using for Jira, there is also, it also has an app called Confluence. You can use Confluence you guys can use Confluence to document your project, and it allows you to write it in a clean way where you can write your instructions. If you have a code, you can put the code in code format. So the next time you are referencing your documentation, you can copy it. I can show you guys shortly. So it's called Confluence. It's a free account you can use.
Okay.
And it is cloud-based. So meaning that once you write your notes there and you close it, the next time you open it, all your notes, everything will still be there how you left it up.
Okay.
Left it, yeah. So It's just kind of like Google Doc, but it is meant for documenting like your projects. So at work, a lot of companies use Confluence.
Okay.
So when they have documentations for different things, most likely it will be done in Confluence.
That's good.
Okay. So now let's well, add your EC2 instance now to your target group. Perfect. So we are going to wait for it to give us the health status, then we'll know how to troubleshoot it.
So that's it as it. As is?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm speaking on mute.
Oh,
Drag your stuff to your screen to the right, just like you did earlier. Let's see, 403. So this just means access the 9. All right. So the first thing we want to do is let's log into your server and just see if your site is there. All right. So
where you log into.
so select it. Once you select it, then you click connect.
Oh, okay.
Then select your EC2 instance connect endpoint. Yeah. So you can connect. So most likely there's probably an issue with your security group. Okay. At least this will give us like a good place to start. So most likely we'll start first with your security group. Close this. Close your connection page. Yeah. All right, let's review your security group. Well, let's start with the, go into the VPC service. And select security groups. And filter it by your VPC so that we just see just what is in that VPC. Okay, you only have that one VPC. Cool. All right. You have a lot of security groups here.
Yeah, so this is what we used for the EC2.
Okay, so that is the EC2. Which one is for your EC2 instance connect endpoint?
This one.
Okay. And which one is for your database? Which one is for your load balancer? Oh, well, we're not dealing with database now, load balancer. Okay, so we have our EC2 instance connect endpoint, web server, and okay. Let's start with the EC2 instance connect endpoint. Okay, so we don't have any inbound rule. Then go to outbounds. And that should be port 22. That looks right. Scroll to the right from your VPC side, right? That is perfect. All right, now let's review your load balancer. Port 80 and port 443 from anywhere. Okay. Then outbound, port traffic, go. Then let's review your web server. Okay, scroll. And drag on that source, drag it out. So you can see the SSH that is connected to your, it's not the same one, right?
This one.
Yeah, it's not the same because you are using the EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint security group, right? If I remember, that is the one you used. The name of that security group is EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint. So for your SSH one, you are using a different security group. You are allowing a different security group. So click Edit Inbound Rules. Remove that SSH one by deleting it. All right, then let's add another one. Let's add another rule. And under the SSH, then under source here, click in there and go to the security group section. So I think it is the one your EIC, not that one. Scroll up. That is the one for your EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, select that one and click Save Rules. Okay, so now let's at least, so we've reviewed your web server looks right. So on your web server, again, go to your web server, you are on it now, scroll to the right and ALB. Okay, so everything looks right now. Let me just review your database one while we are here. So that way,
Database one, okay.
yeah, so that way we know. But then I'm not sure if you were using, I'm assuming you were using the same VPC for all your projects. So that's why you have all the security groups in there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. So the database is allowing traffic from your web server security group. That's right. But you can also add another one that allows traffic from the EC2 Instance Connect endpoint. Because when you migrate your data, you can, so it'll be
This one, right?
yeah, but I think that would be SSH.
You think?
No, yeah, I think is that, yeah, I'll check it. Because even I have to look at the diagram, but let's leave it on this for now. But it would be, but I'll check it for you. Because let me think about it. So we SSH into, oh yeah, it's 3306, not because we will SSH into our server we install Flyway on, and that server will be connecting to the database on 3306. Yeah. So what you did is right. Okay. Now try to SSH into your EC2 instance now. It should work. So don't close the security group. Just open another tab. Open your AWS console in a different tab. Then let's. Perfect. So now change your directory into your HTML directory. Let's check whether the web files are there. // So you start with a // www//html var. Oh no, so it should be yeah, so go back, move you don't have to delete what you already did, so it will be, so it starts with var. So go back to all the way to the end. No, the var is before hww, I believe. So it's var /ww/html. All right, press enter. All right, ls. Okay, there's nothing in your HTML directory, which I don't know. Wait, so let's just run that script I gave you from here, and we'll test it. So copy the script into like your notepad or something, then we'll run it on your computer. Do you have it or you want me to send it again?
I have it.
Okay.
Do I run the one after the other, or should I copy and paste everything?
I don't think it will let you like paste the whole thing. So run it one at a time. So you don't have to run the bin bash, but just run everything after the bin bash.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So it's saying other stuff. It said it's already installed. So why can't we say? No, that's odd. So let's just terminate that EC2 instance. We'll create another one because somehow the script executed,
I,
but
I think you should keep going and you'll find where the issue is down the line on the script.
because in that HTML directory, when we ls in it, is the files for his website are not even there.
Yeah, I was having the same issues when I was doing mine, and I did it that way. And that way I could I could see exactly where the issue was on the script and edit the script as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So if you want to leave this one and like troubleshoot it later, you can. But let's create another one. Okay. Still okay. Proceed without a keypad. So just be a web server security group. Did you select your subnet?
App 2.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, that's it there.
Okay, yeah. All right, then don't, and just launch it. We're going to run our commands manually.
Oh, okay.
Right. I think we can SSH into it. It's fine. We don't even have to wait for, so select the right one though. You've selected the previous one. Okay, now run your commands. Okay. Oh, so I say that your spot script did work, but probably I deleted that repository. Let me see. Let me see if I can access it. Or either that or my repository is public, is private. Let me just a second. I'll get you the right command for that.
Can I use mine?
Yeah, sure. Sure. If you have one, if yours works, use yours. Yeah. Perfect. All right, LS, let's see. So that was what happened with your first script. It worked. It's just like, okay, perfect. Then what's the next one? Unzip it, right?
Yeah, that should be it.
So let me look at the script because we may have to modify the script. Yes, a second. Yeah. So yes, we would have to modify your script. So here you just run unzip for the name of the main zip you see.
I should run what? Sorry.
Unzip, but then you are unzipping yours says main, so you would have to unzip that one. So unzip main dot zip. All right, then ls again. All right, and cd into that main unzip. Main, the mole main, the one that says mole main.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. So yeah, there you go. Press enter, ls. I just want to see what is in there. Okay, so your web files are in there. Okay, so now cd back to your previous directory. Cool. Then we're just going to run cp. So it's so you see that cp command, you're going to run that moment. Oh yeah, so it will be the same thing. So you see command on line 8, the one I sent to you that says cp -r
Okay.
and mo main var ww moment. Yeah, run that one.
This one.
All right, ls now.
LS.
Perfect. So now you can run, continue run the rf to remove the mo. But yours will be, you remember yours is main zip, so you would have to just modify that part of the code. So paste it. But you see where it says mo zip, yours is main zip. That's the name of your folder. Okay. Run it. All right, then you can run the last two to restart your server.
Restart it or something.
Enable, then run the last one. Oh, okay, you already run the last one. Okay, cool. So now let's try to access your site. So we have to add your EC2 instance to the target group. Yeah, remove that one. See, that one is LT.
Yeah.
So now try to use your load balancer as DNS to access your site.
Okay. I think I have it already.
So Okay.
I had to already on my domain name.
Oh, okay. You already connected to your domain name. Okay. So it is working. So the issue was really the only thing we fixed is your security group for the EC2 instance connect endpoint. So maybe when you were installing your site, your commands didn't execute successfully. That could be the reason, but that's the only thing we fixed. Just connecting your EC2 instance connect endpoint.
Okay.
So
Thank
it's working.
Yeah.
I think you have to click on that page for it to load, but you have to click on it, but it's working.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you very much, Aziz.
No problem. So yeah, that means that your load balancer is properly set up. Your load, at least the ones we tested here, it means your load balancer is properly set up, your VPC is properly set up, your route tables, everything is working. So let's say the other servers you added to your target group, let's say that is like a database project, then
Yes.
where you would have to look then is your database. Did your data migrate successfully into the database?
Yes, it
And
did.
okay, cool. So for that dynamic, let's go to your application again, and let's your EC2 console. Let's go to your target group setting. Go to your the other one, yeah. So for your target group, let's edit it. Edit should be up there somewhere. I'll click actions. Oh no, go back to the target group page. Let's see, maybe. Okay. Edit health settings, yeah, that. So here is where we press the drop down under that. So you see under that health status code, that's where we put, I think we can do comma 301 and comma 302. So this will get rid of that redirect one. So that's why you are getting that failed error on the 302. It's not really failed. It's just, that is the code that gets sent when you redirect the traffic. And if you don't tell it that I'm redirecting my traffic and it says that code, it will tell you it's failing, but it's not really a fail code. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Aziz.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
All right. Does anyone else have any question? Or you want me to help you troubleshoot anything?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, the problem I'm having, I don't understand. Maybe it's only me. I'm trying to work on the project, then as well, I will try to write my solution architect, but that thing is too hard. I don't understand. The exam is too hard. Why is it like that? So when I keep studying and I keep going back to do the practice exam, I still don't get it. So, but what I realize is that the more I do the project, the more I get to be able to write the exam. So are you suggesting that I should leave the exam for now and focus on the projects? And another thing I want to ask is, can somebody get a job without being certified with AWS? But someone like me, I have my computer science. I have it. My first degree is in computer science. So I'm thinking that with that, and I have my projects and being a computer science student, can I get a job? Well, I have to be AWS certified.
Yes, so those are a good question. So when you guys take the cloud practitioner exam, that one is a little bit straightforward. They just ask you, what service do you use for this? It's kind of like straightforward. Then
Yes.
when you take the solutions architect exam, that is a little bit much difficult because they want you to put your thinking hat on, and they will give you an idea of maybe like a customer is having an issue and they want you to approach it from a troubleshooting standpoint. And maybe part of it is solving the problem, or a customer has a requirement and you have to create that solutions for them. So it is a little bit much difficult on the solutions architect course, I agree. So what you can do is you don't have to take it immediately. You can
Okay.
take it at some point when you've gathered enough information and you are confident that you understand everything from your VPC standpoint, a lot of the AWS services, right? So
Okay,
when
sorry.
I
Okay.
go ahead.
I wanted to ask, one thing is that I got to know that I like Terraform, and I can work on Terraform. And I'm trying to work on Terraform exam application. It's still more simpler to solution architect. You understand what I'm saying? Like the exam. So if I can prepare myself like in 1 month time, I know I can pass Terraform, because Terraform is still straightforward and it's about the coding. And if you work with the platform, you understand what they're saying. Terraform is more easier than solution architect. Do you understand? So I'm
Yes.
just thinking that, can I go for the Terraform exam before I go for the solution architect, or I have to have a WW? And one thing I did was that I know I can pass the cloud, because I tried the cloud practitioner exam. That's even straightforward. But I don't want something simple. Do you get? So that's why I just want to go for the solution architect, and I'm still working more to get it. And maybe from there I'll go for the security specialty. Do you
Yes.
understand? I
Yes.
know I can do it, but it can just take me some time, because when I keep going to do the exam and I still go back and I see some questions, it'll be like, see, I've not even done anything at all. Do you understand? So it's really weighing me down. Like, this is so difficult. So you have to just put your mind and everything and be prepared. So I don't know if you have any cheat sheet or something that you can just use to, you understand, just to brush me up or something, because I don't know why it's just so difficult like that. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So when you are taking your certification exam, you guys, I don't want you guys to put a time on when you want to get it. It's good to have a goal, but the reality is that make sure you have all the information and you've done all the things you need to do before you approach the exam. Yes, the solutions architect exam is a little bit harder than the cloud practitioner, but when I was learning, you can use Stefan Marik's course to prepare.
Yeah, I have that.
And you can also use a cloud guru. When I don't know how a cloud guru is now, because they sold their platform. But when I was using it, then all I have to do is go through those two people's course and make sure I understand everything they taught there. Then I was able to pass the exam. So the solutions architect, yes, you will need to know more in terms of your knowledge is not just going to stop on, oh, if I want to create a server and I need some compute service, what would I use? Is much more deeper than that. They want you to be able to solve problems. They want you to be able to troubleshoot, and they want you to be able to suggest solutions. So I'll say Stefan Marik's course and a Cloud Guru's Solutions Architect course should be good enough for you to pass those exams.
Okay, I have Stefan. So just try and just subscribe to
Yes.
the A Cloud Guru. Okay.
No, Stefan Marik's too is good. Just go through it. At the end of the course, just assess where your knowledge is. Like if you feel like you have a good knowledge on the services, what is he has explained in that course, then you can go and take the exam. But another thing I will say to your question about when should you take the exam, that is just whenever you feel ready, right? You don't have to, you can take your Terraform exam before you take your solutions architect, if you feel you are much ready for that. And another question you ask is, do you need the certification to get a job? The answer is no, you don't. But does it help? Yes, it does. So my manager at work told me this. The certifications get you noticed, but the skill set you have is really what keeps you in the door, right? So the certification will help you get through the door, but to stay in the door and to keep your job, you have to have the skill sets. So when you are approaching it from the standpoint of what do I need to get a job? Yes, when you get the certification and you list it on your resume, it attracts the right recruiters and potential employers to say, okay, this person has a certification. We need someone that has a certification. So at least you've passed that first stage. But having the certification, I'll be honest, when I had 4 AWS certifications and I still didn't know how to do a lot of stuff in the console in terms of hands-on stuff. But I understood a lot of stuff about concepts, the services, what you can use them for, but the hands-on projects and things I'm sharing with you guys, I didn't know any of those. So I had to start building hands-on projects to learn a lot of stuff. For example, when you take the AWS Solutions Architect course, right? That is just AWS services. What can you use this for and that, right? It doesn't teach you it doesn't teach you Terraform. It doesn't teach you how to write Terraform code. It does not teach you how to create GitHub repository, set up your private repository to clone your repository on your computer. It doesn't teach you a lot of stuff that are day-to-day skills of a cloud engineer that you'll be using at work. So just to answer your question, yes, the certification is important in terms of it gets you notice, and the project you are doing is even more important to help you build your skill set so that once you get your job, you can remain employed. So the time frame you get your solutions architect certification is just depending on when you feel you are ready. Don't rush it. You don't have to get it now, and you don't have to prioritize, oh, I need to get it before I get the Terraform one. If you feel more ready with the Terraform one, go take the Terraform one, get that. At least you will have that on your resume. And a good strategy you guys can also use is for your solutions architect, you can put it on your resume, just put in progress. It's kind of like a psychological thing. It's showing up there. It's almost as if you have it, but you really don't have it. So, but if you put in progress, a lot of employers do accept that as well. So don't rush it. You don't have to say, I want to get it now, and don't prioritize anything. It's just when you feel ready, then take it. That's what
Okay, sorry, my last question. Someone wrote the security specialty and is telling me that it's much more simpler than the solution architect. Is it true?
The which one?
The security one, security specialty.
It is all subjective. It might be simpler for that person, but it might be difficult for another person, right? But what I would say is the security specialty covers a lot of the things that you are supposed to learn from the solutions architect. Because solutions architect, if you are looking at the roadmap of how you can take your certifications, it is cloud practitioner, and the next one is solutions architect. Security specialty is still, I think I'm not sure if AWS still do it now. A couple of years ago, AWS used to require that you get like cloud practitioner and solutions architect before you can even take the security specialty or any of the certification exams. So my own personal advice, don't jump from cloud practitioner to the security specialty. And don't try to rush it. Just take your time. When you keep doing your projects and you keep going through the course, in a month to two, when I go through this, when I was taking the certification exams and I passed it, I usually study for about 2 months. So it will take me about a month and a half to go through all the courses. You guys know the courses are probably only, I don't know how long it is now, maybe 7 hours long. But yes, it will take me over a month to go through them because I'm not just watching everything all the way through. I'm pausing, rewinding, asking myself questions, taking notes and all that stuff. So by the time I get through it, it would be at least a good 4 to 5 weeks. Then I'll use another 2 weeks to do practice exams online and see how my knowledge and my understanding is before I approach the exam. So I always dedicate at least 2 months to studying and taking each exam. So I'll say don't rush it, just take your time.
Yeah, thank you, Ashish.
If you can take other certifications like the Terraform one, then do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Does anyone else have any question?
Hello, Aziz.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Taufik.
Oh, hello. How are you?
Yeah, my question. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. My question is this IP address IPv4 by February it will not be free anymore. I don't know whether you have any information for us, how to switch over to IPv6. I think IPv6 would be free as against IPv4.
Okay. I think when I was reading it, and I read it briefly, I think it's still gonna be free, but it's just like you can just, if you don't, and I may be wrong, don't quote me on it, but I think when I read it briefly, it says something along the line that if you have resources created that are not being used, and you have the IPs allocated, that's when they'll charge you for it. But we can switch to IPv6, and maybe when we start working on the projects and the updates, then we can look into that. But really, to enable it in your VPC, it is very simple. So here we can go to the VPC service and select VPC. So I haven't done the IPv6 before too. That would be new to me. So just a second. So here, when we are creating a VPC, we can just do create VPC, give our VPC a name. And here under IPv4, right? So this is the one we've been using. And under IPv6, you can just use any of these ones. So you can use IPv6 CIDR provided by AWS. And yeah, the region I'm creating my tenancy is default. So, and just create it. So now when you are creating the resources in your VPC, that IPv6 will also be enabled for them. So at least this is as much as but I'll work on our project with using IPv6, and whatever I found, I'll let you guys know. But I don't think the IPv4 is 100% going away. It's just there's gonna be like charges to maybe the ones when you allocate and you don't use it. So, but I can work on the project to use IPv6, and I'll keep you guys posted.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Does anyone else have any question? Okay. So, well, we are at the end anyway. So if you guys have any questions, let me know, and I would, for those of you that send the message to me, I'll definitely get back to you guys. I'm going to release the Kubernetes project by the end of the first week of February. So this month is already over, so it's almost ready. Thanks for your patience, but in the first week of February, the course should be released. So I'm just putting the reference files together. Then I also want to take the project as a student, from a student standpoint, to make sure everything is there. And also another thing I incorporated into the project is those that are using a Windows computer and those that are using a Mac computer can take it at the same time. There are videos in there that are for Windows users, and there are videos in there that are for Mac users. So for example, when we are installing Docker, the Kubernetes command line, AWS CLI, or any other tools we need to complete our project, you will see a lecture there for Windows user, and you will see a lecture for Mac user. So not unlike the other projects that you guys are working on, and I am updating those moving forward, starting in February. All the lectures will be for Windows and Mac users, and you guys can follow at the same time. So if you want to practice and you have a Windows computer and a Mac computer, you can use your Windows computer to complete the project. Then try to complete the project using Mac as well if you have a Mac computer. And the project should be out in February. That's pretty much all I have for today. Thank you guys for joining, and I will see you guys next week.
Thank you, Aziz. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, guys. All right. Bye.